Somewhere beneath the muddy waters off the coast of Georgia lies a missing hydrogen bomb. Not a rumor, not a conspiracy theory, an actual U.S. Air Force thermonuclear weapon. It fell from a bomber during the Cold War in 1958, and despite weeks of searching, nobody could find it. More than 60 years later, it's still missing. Depending on who you ask, that's either completely harmless or mildly terrifying. The strange part isn't that the bomb was lost. The strange part is how it got there in the first place. Because this story begins with two aircraft crossing paths in the darkness over the American South and a split-second decision that still echoes today. Most stories have another side. This one's just a little stranger. I'm Bill, and this is Buffalo Air Park. Let's dive in. It's February 5th, 1958. The Cold War is in full swing, and the Strategic Air Command is constantly flying training missions designed to simulate nuclear strikes against the Soviet Union. One of those aircraft is a Boeing B-47 Stratojet, commanded by Major Howard Richardson. If you'd seen my B-47 video, you already know this slick six-engine bomber was one of the primary pillars of American nuclear deterrent during the 1950s. On this particular mission, Richardson's crew is returning from a simulated bombing exercise over Virginia. But inside the bomb bay is something very real. A Mark 15 hydrogen bomb, nearly 12 feet long, weighing roughly 7,600 pounds, and capable of producing a yield measuring in megatons. The Air Force would later maintain that the weapon was being transported without its plutonium core installed. Whether that settles everyone's concerns is another matter entirely. Shortly after 2 in the morning, Richardson is cruising at approximately 38,000 feet. It's dark, visibility is poor, and several hundred miles away from any headlines. At the same time, 3 F-86 Sabres are conducting a nighttime intercept exercise. One of those pilots is Lieutenant Clarence Stewart. If you'd watched my F-86 video, you know the Sabre was one of the most successful jet fighters of its era. But even great airplanes couldn't overcome the limitations of 1950s radar technology. Stewart locks on to what he believes is his target and begins his intercept. Then he looks up. Years later, Stewart would describe seeing his cockpit suddenly become filled with airplane. He immediately yanks the Sabre into a turn. Too late, the fighter collides with the bomber. The impact shears away the Sabre's wing. Stewart has only one option. He ejects. Somehow, he survives. He descends into a freezing swamp, suffers severe frostbite, nearly shoots himself with a flare pistol while trying to signal rescuers, and is eventually discovered after the sound attracts a local ranger. Meanwhile, Richardson has far bigger problems. The B-47 is badly damaged, a wingtip is gone, an engine has been twisted upward. The bomber enters an uncontrolled dive and loses thousands of feet before Richardson manages to regain control. Now he needs to land. Fast. He contacts Hunter Air Force Base near Savannah, Georgia, but the situation on the ground is almost as dangerous as the one in the air. Part of the runway is under construction. Richardson worries that a hard landing could tear the massive bomb loose from its mounts. If that happens, the weapon could punch through the aircraft and potentially detonate its conventional explosives. The crew is running out of options. Finally, authorization arrives. Jettison the bomb. At roughly 7,200 feet above Wausau Sound, just south of Tybee Island, Richardson opens the bomb bay doors. The Mark 15 falls away into the darkness. The crew braces for an explosion. Nothing. The bomb disappears into the night. Relieved of the weight, Richardson successfully lands the damaged B-47. For his actions, he later receives the Distinguished Flying Cross. The next morning, the search begins. The military launches an extensive recovery operation involving naval personnel, sonar equipment, cable sweeps, and explosive ordnance specialist. The search area covers several square miles. Nothing. Day after day, the crews drag the bottom. Nothing. Weeks pass. Still nothing. The bomb appears to have vanished. Experts believe it likely struck the water nose first and buried itself deep beneath layers of soft sediment. After 10 weeks of searching, the Air Force officially declares the weapon lost. And surprisingly, most of America moves on, partly because Cold War headlines were everywhere, and partly because only weeks later, another B-47 accidentally dropped a nuclear weapon near Mars Bluff, South Carolina, destroying a family's home when its conventional explosives detonated. The Tybee bomb slowly fades into legend. But legends have a funny way of refusing to disappear. Over the decades, stories begin to grow around the missing weapon. Locals speculate about where it might be. Boaters claim they've passed directly over it. And one story tells of a shrimper whose net supposedly snagged an enormous object near Tybee Island. According to a local legend, a diver later surfaced and announced that the object was a bomb. Whether that tale is true or not, it became part of the mythology surrounding the lost weapon. Then came a new question. What exactly is sitting at the bottom of the water? For years, government officials maintained the bomb was incomplete, but researchers later discovered records that seemed to suggest otherwise. The debate continues even today. In 2004, retired Air Force officer Derek Duke launched his own search and claimed to have discovered elevated radiation readings. Federal investigators quickly examined the area. Their conclusion? Naturally occurring minerals in the coastal sands. Not a hydrogen bomb. So where is it? Nobody knows for certain. Maybe it's buried beneath layers of mud. Maybe shifting currents moved it decades ago. Or maybe it's sitting exactly where Richardson dropped it on that February night in 1958, waiting, forgotten by most of the world, but not entirely lost. Because every so often, somebody remembers that somewhere off the Georgia coast rests one of the strangest relics of the Cold War. A missing hydrogen bomb, a mystery buried beneath the mud, and a reminder that history is sometimes far stranger than fiction. And that wraps up another tale from aviation's stranger side. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies.